Is Uzbekistan the new Belarus, with its umbilical cord stretching to the Kremlin? Can it steer, or does it even want to steer, an independent line? Geography is history. So what will the history have in store for Uzbekistan? Just look at the map. Is it all just about energy? So join me, Jan Darash, for how we got here.
Recently, Russia and Uzbekistan signed an agreement assuring that Moscow will build a small nuclear power plant in the Central Asian country. Additionally, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin declared that he would do everything to act effectively on the Uzbek nuclear energy market. The nuclear power plant was to become the first in Central Asia, further cementing Russia's influence in the region. Putin also stated that Russia will contribute $400 million to a joint investment fund to further finance projects in Uzbekistan. These developments have sparked a heated debate as to whether Uzbekistan is slowly but steadily following in the path of Belarus, a country whose ruling class has decided to remain in Moscow's sphere of influence for security and benefits. Any thoughts regarding diplomatic sovereignty now seem unlikely to materialize, as bilateral cooperation between Russia and Uzbekistan only seems to be gaining momentum. In fact, much of the attention is being paid to the energy sector. Tashkent has now repeatedly expressed its interest in buying more oil and gas from Russia, a reversal of Moscow's decades-long practice of importing hydrocarbons from Central Asia. The cooperation, however, does not end there. International investigations have shown that Uzbekistan is one of the main entry points for sanctioned goods into Russia. Therefore, Uzbekistan's usefulness to Russia is further increasing. After the sanctions imposed on Russia came into force, the region became a key conduit for Russia to circumvent Western restrictions. The country is not alone in this difficult situation. Many Central Asian countries and Russia's former and current allies intensified bilateral trade with Putin after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Capital and companies flowing from Russia to the region have increased. This led to an escalation of tensions with the West, prompting US and European governments to insist on suppressing sanctions-evasive activities in the region.
Our guest today is Zygmunt Jędrzejowski, the founding editor of the Open Democracy Russia. So welcome again to the programme.
Thank you for the invitation.
Great. Tell us about Uzbekistan, and you're a traveller there, you know the country. What's it like?
As you know, it is one of the 5 Central Asian former Soviet republics, together with Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan. But it's unique in certain regard. Its population is 33 million, which means it's the largest population-wise the country in the post-Soviet Central Asia. As for territory, Kazakhstan is much bigger because Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country in the world. Uzbekistan is not that big, even though it's relatively big. But with its population of 33 million and growing economy, it has aspiration to become a leading actor on the Central Asian states. Now, let's have a look at Central Asia. These 5 post-Soviet republics have together population of 75 million. They're landlocked and they're surrounded. They have China as a neighbor to the east. They have Russia as a neighbor to the north. And they also have 2 other important players in this area. This is Iran and Afghanistan. So this is pretty sensitive part of the world. And of course, different countries, different superpowers like China and Russia and maybe America are trying to play their game. Britain used to be always an active player in Afghanistan.
Well, it used to be called the Great Game.
Yes. This is of course about a great game, but we have to say also that this is not a democratic country, and a former president of Uzbekistan, Islam Karimov, who died suddenly a few years ago out of heart attack. He was a dictator and he was a tyrant, and he kept sending people to jail or torturing them. That was peanuts for him. That was really very brutal dictatorship. The new president, whose name is Shavkat Mirziyoyev, who used to be prime minister under Islam Karimov, he tries to democratize. It's not that it has changed and became Switzerland or this kind of democratic country, but he opened up. He believes that one of the drivers for the economy would be tourism. And he sets very ambitious targets. Uzbekistan has become one of the most popular tourist destinations in Asia. And this is interesting for our viewers. Polish Airlines LOT are the first airline to fly direct flight out of European Union, to fly direct flights from Warsaw to Tashkent. This is why it is so popular. It has historical monuments of world class, like Samarkand or Bukhara, or mosques, or schools, Islamic schools, etc. These are 14th, 15th, 16th century historical monuments, really nicely restored and really superb. Secondly, Uzbeks are very friendly people. With a lot of hospitality. And this is cheap country. The taxi in Tashkent will drive you anywhere for maybe $1 or $2. And if you go out to the restaurant, you get their traditional rice meal of plov with also little money. So it's still very undemocratic. Mirziyoyev holds it in his iron hands, but at the same time, he sort of tries to open up to the outside world.
And what's his policy with regard to his northern neighbour, Russia?
He's smart. I must say, first of all, Islam Karimov, his predecessor, I mean, of course, this was different Russia. This was in times of Boris Yeltsin. He didn't have to listen to dictates from Moscow. But he was quite reluctant, to enter any formal agreements like the Mutual Security Treaty. Uzbekistan first joined and they left, and they are quite careful. I mean, to be member of these formal groupings organized by Russia means to follow their agenda, and they don't want it. They try to be very careful. At the same time, he depends on Russia a lot, because the three Central Asian countries, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, send a lot of migrant labor to Russia. It was estimated in 2020 there were 11 million migrant laborers in Russia, and they are mostly from those three countries.
The remittances.
Yes, and they send money, and the whole villages live on it, because wages in Russia are maybe 3 times higher than Uzbekistan. When I saw people working in the fields, Uzbekistan is the largest Asian producer of cotton. And it was a national habit that every year in the fall, students, pupils, employees of different companies are sent to the fields to pick up cotton. Actually, that was a little bit like forced labor. And a lot of international companies objected to it and said they wouldn't buy not only Uzbek cotton, but they wouldn't buy garments produced out of Uzbek cotton. So this was somehow changed, but that is why they are quite dependent on Russia. And recent visit of President Putin traveled. This was his third international visit after after China and Belarus. He traveled to Tashkent together with 300 high government officials, and nearly the entire cabinet of ministers traveled with him. They signed something like 27 different agreements. They were mostly related to the economy. Russia promises to build a nuclear power plant. Russia promises to increase gas supply to Uzbekistan, and they're supposed to create some mutual fund in order to fund future investments. But still, Mirziyoyev, okay, this is necessary. We have to. Uzbekistan didn't recognize
the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Yes, they had very now with Putin they had very sort of carefully worded communique in which said that both sides are for territorial integrity, but Mirziyoyev was didn't recognize Russian incorporation of these old republic territories. Also Crimea. He never recognized Crimea. And also there is a second point to which he is very sensitive, that there is always a risk that Uzbek migrant workers, when they are in Russia, they can be enlisted and sent to the Ukrainian front. And in this regard, he tells them to return to Uzbekistan. He is not very happy, and there was one or two cases when Uzbeks who enlisted into the Russian army were sentenced and punished in Uzbekistan. So he's quite careful.
Is this an uneasy relationship between the two countries, or is it one that's recognized and accepted?
It is uneasy because, first of all, traditionally, from the Soviet times, those mutual bonds were very, very strong and very powerful. And Uzbekistan, and now this mass migration of migrant laborers started in early 2000 when the Russian economy was booming. And Uzbekistan is not as much dependent on this like Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan, but still it means a lot to them. It means a lot of them. They try to change things. They negotiate with Turkey. They negotiate with Baltic states which possibly also would accept Uzbeki workers. And believe it or not, this is quite often when you hire a taxi here in Warsaw, then the driver would come from Uzbekistan. And when you tell him you were in Uzbekistan, he's so happy. There is somebody with whom he can discuss things in his own country. But still it is corrupt. It's very corrupt. It's sort of controlled by local oligarchy. President's family is sort of in control of everything. But at the same time, there is different style. It's not like having stick in his hand. And 2 years ago, there were massive riots in one of the independent republics, parts of Uzbekistan. This is called Karakapaustan, in the city of Nukus, and dozens of people were killed. They wanted more autonomy, and Central Parliament wanted to limit this autonomy. But Mirziyoyev, following these bloody events, flew to Nukus, capital of that region, told them, listen, I listened to you. I know you're not happy with the new regulation. We sort of cancel it. We change it. So he's sort of more flexible.
A fixer. We see the upsurge of for want of a better word, a pro-Western sentiment in Georgia, for example, by the urban middle class. Does this mean that the urban middle classes in Uzbekistan don't exist, or they are too small to matter? What's the social structure like?
It is Islam countries and Europe with its patterns is farther away than to Georgia. It's an Asian country, and you see people dressed up in traditional way, and you see men who go to the mosque regularly. And this is even though this is not the strict Islam like in Iran. Like they drink vodka and they eat pork, and women walk without faces covered. This is I would call soft Islam. But at the same time, it's still a very poor country. It's an underdeveloped poor country, and Georgia is farther ahead of Uzbekistan. I believe that this real interest of Mirziyoyev, real interest in tourism, and you're really impressed with the Tashkent airport, modern airport, and their fast train, which connects the city of Tashkent to Samarkand and Bukhara, which are two main destinations when you travel there as a tourist. It's sort of super modern, high class, and sophisticated, but there is a problem with internet. Like when you're in Uzbekistan, you want to sort of change your mail, check out your mail, or post something on your Facebook. It's difficult. The internet connection is very poor, and I believe it's sort of on purpose. It's deliberate, so that people don't get too much information from the outside world.
How do you characterize Western policy towards Uzbekistan? Is it a naive policy? Does it want to just democratize every society it touches, or can it recognize that there are traditional hierarchies in a society like Uzbekistan?
I think this is, first of all, Western countries, Western democracies step in when they see a real chance to do something about it, like Georgia. Georgia, I mean, is a country with pretty long history of struggle for democracy after the collapse of Soviet Union, whereas Uzbekistan, this is dictatorship, really brutal dictatorship. But I believe that Western countries are responding. I give you an example because it's pretty illustrating. Uzbekistan during the World War II, when it used to be Soviet Republic, was an area to which a lot of people were evacuated from territories occupied by the Germans, also by the Jews. A number of Polish Jews, it is estimated that out of 300,000 Polish Jews who have survived the war, 250,000 survived in the Soviet Union, majority of them in Uzbekistan. And also Uzbekistan was a territory from which army of General Anders was evacuated to Iran. And you have monuments to General Army in Uzbekistan everywhere where they used to have their camp. So Mirziyoyev decided to pay attention to this, and he opened up something which wasn't on the agenda. But he wants to have good relations with Jews in the United States, so he decided to open a monument to this evacuation project, to saving of Jews in the Jewish cemetery in Tashkent. And this was opened up, inaugurated 3 years ago. And it was an event welcomed in this opinion-strong circles in America. He's, I think, he met with
intelligent policymaker.
He met with President Macron of France. He tries to open up, but at the same time, that's the double task. First of all, he wants to open up, but at the same time, he wants to save his control over the country.
Yes, he can't open up too much. Zygmunt Jęczałowski, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for coming onto our programme.
Thank you.
So that's all we have time for today. Join us next time for How We Got Here.